So welcome. I'd like to bring the meeting to order. It's great to see everybody. And we will all rise and start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I don't see any hats. Oh. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We had an executive session to discuss a personnel matter. Are there any motions to be made as a result of that executive session?
No.
No? No motion to make there. We have one public comment, and I would invite Rick Reed up to speak to us. Thank you.
That was prompt.
That was quick, you're on. And I don't know if you read the little sign, there's 3 minutes for public comment.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely.
So I have 3 minutes. I was thinking of writing something out there. I think I this will be so much better. I'm really here to talk about technology and the heads-on thorough like you're going into as we pursue technology in the schools. And it doesn't seem to be there's any debate about it. And I'd like to start broaching that subject. Just recently there was an article about electronics, the next parenting challenge, problem with technology. And I imagine you guys probably hope that this isn't your first awareness of these issues. Glow Kids, 5 ways to help kids manage the screen time. I'm up here talking about screen time and the amount. I also, for the public schools, I substitute teach. I'm taught for a private school. I was laid off this week, so I'm looking at eventually. But this issue is the screen time that I'm seeing in the public schools here. And we have fantastic public schools, I've got to say. San Francisco, just like going for Idaho. But still, there are so many classes where you've got that little guy that's just got to get on the screen all the time. And you're encouraging him to get out to go to the playground, not to be on the screen, not to be on the iPad, for whatever. Okay? And or the deviation towards games. Games is such a distraction. And I'm saying we have the greatest intentions with our technology, but the students, as Sean was saying, are trying to open the world, and I said they don't want to. I should have never said they, because it's not all of them. It's that there's some of them that want to just get escape into the computer. Okay? I have 2 children. My daughter was still moved through school with over 4.0. She was sent to extreme miss in 2016, Nicole. Okay, my son Max is a computer freak, and it's a daily fight to get him off the screen. We've been very successful. If you go down to C3 Bridge and play singing, plays violin, it's amazing. It's because it was on a damn computer. Now I've got this Chromebook coming home. It's in my house. Okay. And I don't know how many other parents are even aware of this, but he will sit. Just the other day, I was gone from 3 to 6. I came home and he was on the computer back to the wall. My wife thought he was going home late. I came home at 6, got on there, checked the nothing. He had some kind of a game that he had downloaded. He was on memes and YouTube sites for that 3 hours wasted. So corrected him, put him on the table where I could see over his shoulder, and he worked until 11 o'clock at night. He could have been in bed by 8. Be ready. But that's just a small anecdote of what I'm one parent, and I just wonder how many other parents like me want to control the computer. Don't have any idea, don't know how to look up history or have like the sophistication. I've been working with computers since the 80s and working, and there's my time.
Sorry, it wasn't supposed to go off.
Okay, well,
that's
where I want to go, and I want to start here and continue the dialogue with a little more information.
Thank you for speaking.
Thank you for your comment.
Yeah.
Huh?
Would somebody these articles?
Yeah, actually you can leave those with me, that'd be great. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry the timer was supposed to be on. My fault. At this time, I would take a motion to approve consent agenda.
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
I second the motion.
Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. So we are going to go right on to Clark Fork High School's off-site prom request. And you have some students here.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Brooke and Grace.
Yeah.
Look, you know them
Brooke and
both.
Grace, go on the hot seat, and I'm gonna let them steal the show.
Great.
We're here to request permission to have prom off-site this year at Beyond Hope Resort. That's all we got.
Don't sell yourself short. Tell us where it was last year? Beyond Hope, so this is not a habit, tradition.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any questions for them? I mean, make it worth their while here? It's a great location. I don't know that we have any problems with that as your prom site. I kind of want to stretch out how long you're speaking to us, but I don't have to. I don't have to. I would.
Need a motion? I move
Yeah.
that we accept the students' request and approve the Beyond Hope Resort.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments? All in favor? Aye. Thank you, and enjoy your prom planning and the actual event. Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys want to stay for the whole meeting, you can.
Yeah. Oh. Good, that's a good answer. Thank you. So we're going to go on to ask James Kaler to come up and speak to us about the bus lease.
Evening.
Good evening.
So I'm requesting that we raise the lease bus price per mile from $3.19 per mile to $4 per mile. Any questions about that? It hasn't been raised since 2013. I believe you would have seen that in the packet.
Right.
So this just adjusts the price to what myself and Lisa Halls feel is
Realistic.
a realistic rate that we should be charging for that.
So, a question, I mean, who does this apply to? Does this apply to district, in district use, or out of district charters?
This is just the community. It's not any. It has nothing to do with the in-district. So this wouldn't affect anything with competition trips or sporting events or field trips. With nothing to do with that. We provide lease busing for Schweitzer when they have overflow events, private weddings, just a lot of private events. So at the Lost in the 50s event, we drive around and shuttle people around. So there's a lot of community involvement that we do with our school buses, and this would just raise that price to an equitable level that we feel is right.
So for $4 a mile, you furnish the bus, the driver, right, the fuel, the insurance,
Yeah.
They do provide the commercial liability insurance.
commercial liability.
But is there a $50 a day?
Plus 50.
Yeah.
Now, is that remaining the same?
That will remain the same. So it would be $4 per mile plus $50.
$50.
And is your mileage, from when they leave your yard until they return to your yard, or?
Yes.
Or just when they arrive at their pickup site, or?
We calculate the entire trip. So from the time we leave the yard to the time we return, that's the mileage.
So,
Do you have a charge for waiting? You go somewhere and, you drop off your patrons, and then the driver waits until they come
In the
return?
addition, when we've had people request that, we say, would you keep your driver here for the entire night and do shuttles or whatever, or just stand by, then we have charged a $50 standby fee. Yes.
Per hour, or just
Flat?
flat?
Just a flat $50 standby fee.
well, if there's no other questions, I would entertain a motion.
I move that we accept the recommendation and go to $4 a mile on our bus rates.
Second the motion.
Moved and seconded. Are there any comments? Questions? Comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. Motion passes.
So one more.
Thank you,
Is this a
James. Oh.
significant source of revenue for the district?
I wouldn't say we make any huge amount of money on it.
I'm not talking about making money, just source of revenue. Are they generating much money?
It's hard for me to
Hard
calculate.
to say.
We do about 15 to 20 leases per year, so it's
Yeah.
not a huge.
No, that's
It's not an
It's not
enormous
huge.
amount. Yeah. But it makes it at least,
It's a good service to the
Cost
community.
effective.
The community really appreciates it.
right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
James. Not.
Have a good night.
Thank you. I'm going to hand it over to Superintendent Woodward, and you're going to talk about school psychology.
Yeah, so I'm just asking you all to consider approving our school psychologist positions as hard to fill once again this year. It's a state law that you all designate a position if we are using those funds from the state in this way. You just have to approve it each year, and it's certainly one of our hardest to fill positions are the school psychologists. So with this, what that allows us to do is pay them $5,000 more per year than they would otherwise receive. And we've been able to use that as a pretty good recruiting tool, for sure, so.
Is this a new position? Is this a?
No, this is just, we have 4 school psychologists currently, and we're just asking every year for you to designate those positions as hard to fill. That way we can give them the extra $5,000.
So this is a renewal?
Yeah, renewal of something that we're already doing.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's an annual, and it has to be renewed annually.
Yes.
We have to consider it annually. And in fact, I'm sure you would tell us if it seemed that when you posted a new position, there was a ton of applicants that would not qualify as a hard to fill. That just
Exactly.
hasn't happened yet,
No.
so it is something every year that we'll see it comes up.
Is there does the state step in and supplement those funds, or does it come straight out of our budget?
Yeah, the good news is we receive funding for that, and it comes out of our leadership premiums.
Okay.
We would prefer that they just give us additional dollars for that. We wouldn't have to use leadership premiums,
Right.
but at least we're getting money for the premiums.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay?
Madam Chairman, I will move to approve the designation of school psychologist as a hard-to-fill position in the Lake Ponderosa School District.
Second.
I moved and seconded. Are there any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed, motion passes. We're just flying along, and the next one is ELA. So I will turn it over to Andra Murray. Actually, would you like to introduce the
Yeah,
topic
just,
here?
this is our ELA curriculum. I'm going to mess your presentation up.
No.
Adoption. They're going to be sharing that. And I want to thank our wonderful staff members. They're all not going to present tonight, but they're in support, and they've been active participants in the pilot. And it's a tremendous amount of work because they, not only do they spend time on a committee, they have to spend time preparing to have a guest teacher in their classrooms, and that's an awful lot to put on our people. So happy to have you all here tonight. And Tasha Hamer, I'd like to officially introduce you to the board as our new principal of Washington Elementary School. So Tasha, tonight we won't make you do this, we'll give you some forewarning, but a tradition for our new administrators, they give a presentation to the board, a little bit about their background and et cetera, et cetera. We'll have you do that soon, not tonight.
No, that'd be great. Andra.
Well, it's our privilege to be here tonight to talk to you a little bit about our process of reviewing curricular materials. So we looked at English language arts, so we're going to say ELA quite a bit tonight, but that is our elementary reading, writing, speaking, and listening program. And we had 21 teachers representing K-6, and many of them are here tonight, not all of them, but we had a pretty robust team take on a year-long journey to come tonight and share our recommendations.
And here are the list of teachers. So you can see we had equal representation at each grade level, including specialists. And we have representation from all 7 elementary schools in the district as well.
Great.
And we want to give our thanks not only to our staff, but to parents and patrons who gave feedback along the way, students, of course the superintendent and you for hearing our presentation tonight. And it's my hope that you might hold questions till the end. You have hopefully all the slides in front of you in paper copy. We'll outline the process, and then the stars of the show will talk about highlights from their classrooms, and then we'd be glad to field questions. So.
Okay, great.
I just want to spend a minute or two on why did we start with elementary reading and what the history's been. It's my second year in the district, but I wanted to provide a little bit more background. So first of all, our Idaho content standards changed back in 2011. And our State Department recommends typically a 6-year review cycle for looking at instructional materials. You've heard me speak about that before, and generally we fall off that for budgetary reasons. The last purchase for elementary ELA, English Language Arts, was 12 years ago when the Scott Forsman reading program was purchased and implemented in 2006. And certainly our staff have been working since those new standards in 2011 to take our current materials and upgrade units, switch out some reading material, do the best we can to use what we have to meet the new standards. But we are fairly significantly out of date in terms of elementary reading. Staff were surveyed last spring, and they did indicate English Language Arts is the highest priority area of need. And you know that our achievement data has been relatively flat. If you feel that our materials aren't yielding the gains we want to see for our kids. So while we do at elementary still slightly beat the state average in terms of achievement test to ISAC, our data has been flat, or even in some grades trending backwards over the last few years. And so I have to just give a plug for that notion of a guaranteed and viable curriculum. Why do we look at curriculum? And to me, that second quote really speaks to it. We want to ensure that we have high quality materials in every classroom across our system, and that we can guarantee that what's being taught in one grade level at one school is being taught similarly at another grade level in another school. You have experience with kids changing schools, and we want to make sure that we have that common language for both students and staff. And that just speaks to me so much to see that high quality common curriculum, including in reading, writing, and discussion, that speaking and listening is one of the most powerful impacts on learning. So we're excited to be here sharing our work. I won't read our entire timeline, but we want you to know that these dedicated professionals and more who aren't here really have taken on almost 4 years worth of work. We called for applications for interested pilot teachers at the end of last school year, and made sure, again, as Tasha mentioned, that we had representations from all our elementary schools and all grade levels. We met in August and gave up the day of their summer to come back early and have a full day meeting and launch our team. We met monthly throughout the school year. So again, that's a lot to prepare, to come, meet, share with your colleagues. And every time we met, we worked hard to have a piece of professional learning together, typically in the morning, and then tons of collaboration and scoring time to really talk about the nitty-gritty of the materials they were using. We collected evidence. I was kind of a stickler for having examples and evidence every time we met. And we used something called the EQUIP rubric. We'll show you some specifics about that in the next few slides. But it stands for Educators Evaluating Quality Instructional Products. It's used across many states, and it's very specific. As a side note, many of our teachers who go through Idaho Core Training or the Idaho Coaching Network, their training is based around pieces of this rubric, so it made sense to use a tool that our teachers have been trained and are well versed in.
As well as Andrea mentioned, the support and collaboration between our teachers and trainers for the programs that we looked at. We had opportunities to learn from other districts. We did some online conferencing with teachers, asking them questions about the program and how they use it, and just kind of get that real hand experience with teachers. As well as we had a group of teachers that had the opportunity to do a site visit and watch the program in action. In addition to learning from other districts, we had a training from the State Department of Ed, Katie Brotman, come and provide our pilot teachers training on just how the grammars read within the new content standards.
And then we convened some focus groups and made sure that we got feedback from parents and patrons who, Tasha and I together, I think, had 5 face-to-face meetings, as well as individual emails and phone calls with anyone who couldn't make those times throughout March. We had some late evenings, some during lunch, some before morning, and those were so valuable for me just to connect face-to-face and not only hear their thoughts about what they wanted in reading materials for their children, but also just make relationships, hear questions. Many of them wanted to see the EQUIP rubric or had questions about the standards. So I really appreciated that face-to-face time. And then in March, our team had a full day of kind of hashing out our evidence and landing on our final recommendation for tonight.
So I just want to give you guys some backgrounds and the key shifts. So there are key shifts that took place within ELA and math when we adopted new standards. Our key shifts hang on these 3 things, but basically for us to look at a curriculum, they had to align fully with the key shifts. And one of the things is that students are reading complex texts at a higher lexile, and what we found that the texts that our students are in right now are too easy. So we have students in 5th grade that are reading a novel that with the new content standards jump all the way to 3rd grade within that lexile. We want students to learn through text, through rereading and diving into text. And then, so that deals with the complex text. And another key shift with the complex text and close reading is that students read fiction and nonfiction 50-50. And Scott Forsman was more like 5 fiction to 1 nonfiction, and I see Curly shaking his head. And then we upgrade, we have strategic upgrades, but we still weren't at that 50-50. And lastly is just, and then the evidence from text. So not only are students reading complex text, that's fiction and nonfiction, we're having them dive into the text and pull evidence from the text. So their thinking and their learning doesn't come from me standing up here and telling them about volcanoes. It's from reading complex texts about volcanoes and proving their information through text. And I need to like quit talking because I could go on and on about the key shifts, but I won't. And lastly is just the real importance of academic vocabulary and building vocabulary that transfers between ELA and math, and that they are using and building as they come in as kindergartners and leave as 12th graders.
So I mentioned that rubric. We used a very specific rubric for gathering data and examples and talking as grade levels and cross-grade level teams. I just wanted to show you the bold headers so you had a sense of what we were evaluating materials for. It's a pretty in-the-weeds rubric, which we'll show you next. But on a global scale, of course, the first header, it had to tightly align to our Idaho content standards. Second, it had to score very well in those ELA key shifts because those are dispositions we want for our kids for college, career, life. Those really transcend the curriculum. Those are the backbone of the Idaho content standards. It needed to have great instructional support. So student engagement falls here, as well as just the ability to meet a variety of learners. So we need to be able to differentiate and support kids who need extra help. We also want to extend and enrich for kids who need extra challenges. So we have a whole section of our rubric that really dove into what instructional supports are there for all kids. And finally, assessments. We wanted to look, and our staff will share some specific examples, but need to have a variety of assessments, both online and paper pencil options. That, I know you can't read, but just to show you, those are those bold headers. And you can see when we say they worked hard, they worked hard. These are all the bullets and specific look-fors that they pulled examples from out of the material. So again, something like instructional supports then dives down with real specifics about what materials, high-quality materials should have in them. So let you know that they really dove in. And finally, before they take over, also to know that we considered outside research. So we wanted to share our opinions and our evidence, but we also wanted to check our thinking against outside groups. One that I trust is Ed Reports, because they're educators who review materials. So we spent several of our first meetings looking at the Ed Reports and outside groups' feedback on several programs. So they review for alignment to standards, which we mentioned before, the ability to build knowledge and vocabulary, and then the usability. So we also wanted to highlight that the program we are going to recommend to you tonight did score all green on the outside, which is the best score report from Ed Reports at all grade levels as well. So that was important to us.
if I'm looking at it, those little, which one is your
So,
Ready Gen? Is the marker is the little blue?
This is actually a screenshot of how Ready Gen scored.
Okay,
across
so this is
kinder,
all Ready Gen
first,
scoring.
second.
Yeah, kinder first, second, and
Yeah,
then
yeah, yeah, and I see
okay.
every grade. Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
So just, you heard a bit about our process, but how do we form a recommendation tonight? Definitely hanging our feedback around that equip rubric, reading those external reviews, you saw some highlights from ed reports, having ongoing professional development, collaboration, and then really making sure that our final choice was balanced, is developmentally appropriate, aligns to those standards, and stayed within budget. I did want to mention, those of you who were previously on the board, that we weren't sure going into this work, we could fully purchase K-6. Because my levy proposal was larger than we necessarily had budget for. So we went forth, and I was clear that I was writing grants and seeking outside funding and doing the best we could, that we wanted to make our recommendation and see where we landed. But through both the levy funding and a bit from the budget buffer and working with Sean and Lisa, there's a bit of the technology budget that can help with the licensing piece of this curriculum, and then some outside funding from PAPE. We're able to pull off a full K-6 purchase. So I'm really thrilled to be advocating for that. And ReadyGen is a program that's a recommendation from our team across K-6. But now that you know about our process, our team is going to highlight a few pieces they appreciated at the classroom level.
So I would like to start out with introducing you to Jen Cornelius and Julie Shea. They're going to speak to the text that's available with ReadyGen, and I'll just leave it up to you guys. School Board.
Hello.
We were very excited, along with our students, to be able to hold in our hands an authentic text that students might see in a bookstore or check out of the library themselves. We also, as teachers, were very excited when students were coming to the end of a text and they would say, "What do we get to read next?" So that was very, very fun for us to see and to hear and to watch. And that book, Stella Luna, is a first grade text.
And it's nice to see the students actually have a text in hand, not just an anthology or a collection of text. It's an actual
Right,
book that they have.
right.
Also, in addition to the anchor text, which would be this example of Stella Luna, students also have a variety of other texts that they get to interact with in the classroom.
So the text collection part, this is a topically related material. It goes through the thematic units that are through the curriculum. This covers multiple genres. It does poetry, biographies. So it's just a nice extra little piece for the curriculum.
And also included is a magazine-like feature called Sleuth, and this is where students are pulling their text evidence and pointing in the text and saying, "This is where I found my information."
And lastly, Pearlie, this, you'll be familiar with this, there's a leveled library connection, so each, not only is there an authentic text, the sleuth, the text collection, but each unit has leveled readers that can support students that are well below grade level and above and everywhere in between that go with the theme. We're like sailors, people.
I know, I'm ready. So is that from a variety of grades we just saw in your hands, or was that all that
This
lower
is just
grade?
the first grade.
It's the first grade box?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow, great.
Next,
Oh,
I'm
and
going to invite up, this is Nancy Williams and this is Mindy Roget. And they're going to talk about how assessments are used in ReadyGen. What types of assessments?
So there's a beginning of the year assessment, which is really nice because then you can sort of see where all of your kids land. Then we have frequent assessments. So after every story, and it's even just like Stella Luna, we can assess their comprehension skills, grammar skills, and it can be online, it can be paper, pencil, and you get immediate feedback. So if you think that they are lacking in a certain skill, whether it's informative or narrative, you can like hit it right there. There's also some different grammar fluency things that they can do. There's some games, there's every day they have a writer's journal. It assesses their grammar knowledge, everything that they are learning, they do it every day. And then they, at the selection test and the end of unit test, they always use very SBAC language, academic language, different types of questioning like the SBAC, and then they're always asked to write an essay based on, it could be an opinion essay, an informative essay, a narrative.
It models the performance test that the students will see on the ISAT. So
Each time, like so if we read a story in a week, they do it every week. And then at the end of the unit, it might take a month, it might take 6 weeks, they do it again. So it's lots of practice.
with all 3 genres of writing.
And it becomes like not intimidating because they do it so often.
And so like Mindy mentioned, it's paper pencil, but it's the value of taking the test online is that you get immediate data of how your students are doing on all the standards tested in that grade level. And so as they take the test, those numbers would change. You could instantly see if your whole class struggled in an area. That's something you would want to reteach. So it's instant feedback, and there is a writing portion that the teacher actually goes online, they read it, and they have a rubric, and they score it immediately and stick the score into the computer, and it finishes giving them their final score. So it's very nice information.
And you can just click on that. So like today I was like, ooh, 96%. And then I clicked on the S4, and then I could see the exact standard that most of my kids have mastered. And then you can click on that 35% and be like, oh, I've really got to hit that somewhere. Or maybe, it's coming down the pipe.
And it just really supports our goals as a district to look at each student by student and standard by standard. So it's not just the whole class on how they're doing, we can see how each individual student is doing.
And it's really manageable as a teacher. So a lot of times you get all these scores and all this data and you're like, what do I do? When you can just click on it and be like, oh, I need to hit this again. That's pure and simple.
Thank you, guys. So I'm going to invite Alan Larson up. Alan's going to discuss the strengths of writing within this program and how this program works well with Step Up to Writing, which is our current writing program that we adopted 3 years ago, K-12.
So what we've learned in the last few years is a best practice is that kids need to be writing daily, and with ReadyGen, there is writing that goes with every lesson, every day. Kids are building up their stamina, and the writing that's in there is incremental because there's always a large writing task at the end of each module. So our kids are getting practice writing, they're getting the tools they need, and they're getting all this stuff that builds to help them complete that final project that goes along with it. ReadyGen encourages a variety of writing. We're doing narratives, we're doing persuasive essays, we're doing informative essays. So they're writing across the spectrum of writing. And like Tasha mentioned, when we adopted Step Up to Writing, if you look at the materials in Step Up to Writing and how they break down a writing task and then look at ReadyGen, it's almost a 1-to-1 correlation of what ReadyGen is teaching, so the 2 programs work together really well, and then we're all sharing the same vocabulary across the district, so that when they go from classroom to classroom, they know what it means to write a red sentence, or to what they need to do to write an informative essay, or whatever it is that they need to do.
And we're going to do some work, Andrea and I and a group of teachers over the summer, of taking ReadyGen, if you guys approve it, and incorporating Step Up to Writing at each grade level. So when teachers get ReadyGen, the work of using Step Up to Writing is already done, so it doesn't get put to the side. I stopped myself earlier about telling you about the key shifts and close reading and text evidence. But this is Lori Wilson, this is Kim Ball, and they're going to highlight some of the features within ReadyGen that they feel really address the key shifts.
So if you look at this screen, this image on the left, that's actually the teacher's manual for the kindergarten grade level. This is the first trade book that we read. It's called Where's Home Little Pip?
And the way it works at kindergarten grade level is we read the text as a whole, and then over the course of several days, we reread portions of the text. And so when we read closely, we're reading for understanding, we're reading for information, and the students have opportunities to ask and answer questions about the text at different depths of knowledge. So they might be just recalling information, or they might be integrating and synthesizing information. So that allows kids at different reading levels to be able to participate in classroom discussions about the book and to feel confident about their abilities to find information from the text. So at the kindergarten level, I really like that we're able to do that on a daily basis. So they get comfortable answering questions and going back and finding information over the course of several days.
And then for the upper grades, I'm fourth grade. For building understanding, I just made a copy of some of the work that we've done recently. We're learning about volcanoes, and so I like how the program integrates science and social studies in with the reading language arts. So we were doing social studies, and on the paper that you'll see in a second, it shows you it's got poetry, we have nonfiction, fiction, myths, everything is in there. The writing, as Alan was saying, is also integrated, and we were talking earlier about how students, Tasha was mentioning how they're citing text evidence. I just put two, I know it's kind of hard to see because I shrunk it down, but two examples of how the kids are saying in the text I read, or in the text it says, and they're actually pulling that information out. And then on the back, I copied our science manual just so you could see, oh, it really does integrate with science nicely. And then the kids had projects to do. This one they had to make a poster talking about some equipment that scientists use who work on volcanoes, and they had to pick some things and make a poster. A couple weeks ago, the kids I had to make a board game, design a board game, had to do with the Ring of Fire, and so they just sat down, they worked together, they didn't fight, they were all engaged, they made these board games, and one of my more challenging students said, wow, I learned and I had fun.
Thank you.
I'm going to have Mindy and Nancy come up again, please. So I just want to talk about how ReadyGen has opportunities to support students that need enrichment or enhancement and extend their learning, as well as ReadyGen has an intervention piece for students that are struggling. I'm going to kind of give it up to these guys because they have taken the full idea of engagement, enrichment, and ran with it. Do you guys mind talking about win time?
Yep. So Kootenai does a school-wide program called Win Time. It's What I Need Time, and every grade level gets 30 minutes a day where they flood fifth grade. There's 2 fifth grade classes with every extra person they have, title staff, special ed staff, all the teachers, and they break up all the students in fifth grade into all of these smaller groups. So the classroom teachers keep the on level or kids that need enrichment in our rooms, and we're able to do project-based learning. So since it is science and social studies based, then we can develop a project that extends that learning. So for example, we read a chapter book on it was like a survivor game. These families were put on a deserted island and they had to survive. So my students got put on a deserted island and they had to do mapping, and they had to create, find a food source and a water source, and with all they had was what they packed in their suitcase because they thought they were going to Hawaii, so that was pretty fun. It was a month-long project with writing and mapping and math, and it was very engaging, and the kids loved it.
And so for my win time, one of the science projects that I did, we had a whole thematic unit on the human body. So everybody picked a system, they did a Google slide show on that, and then at the end they laid down and traced their whole bodies, butcher paper, and they diagrammed their system. And I mean, these kids were just, you would come in and just think they were having a ton of fun, but they were diagramming every part of the system, like almost to scale. And it was just the most incredible learning opportunity. And it's all because of these really rich texts.
To give me context, what grade?
Fourth.
Fourth. Anatomy and physiology, fourth, and you said fifth. Okay, great.
And Nancy, I'm going to keep you up here. So not only do they have the opportunity to enhance learning, but there's an intervention piece. So Ready Gen has an intervention piece called Ready Up, and it's K6, and there's short intervention lessons that align with what teachers are teaching within class. And Nancy has had great success with the intervention piece.
So that piece was taught as in the wing group outside of the classroom. And when it was taught to my students who were doing Ready Gen plus that, it was valuable to kids in that group. Those students made a lot of progress because it tied together so well. It wasn't as successful with someone not doing the program. The other classroom wasn't piloting the materials, but it also could be easily taught as in the classroom. A teacher can come in and do a small group at a table with the students right in the room, and it works well that way too.
Thank you. So I'm going to let Andra and Jewel kind of summarize the rest of this. This is some of our focus group highlights.
We just wanted to share a few quotes. You heard the staff highlight for sure that value of having units that are based around authentic text and that balance in every unit. There's a module that's fiction and a module that's nonfiction. So that definitely was a theme from our parents and our patrons, that they really appreciated kids having real books and seeing themselves as readers and being able to access that in so many ways, along with the short selections that we might be used to seeing in something like Scott Forsman, where it's a collection, a basal, just short selections from a longer text. And Jewel really went all out and was willing to teach two programs kind of head to head. And so her students gave really authentic feedback about some of their preferences or how that felt. So that's important to share as well.
Sure. Yeah, so I did both of the curriculums, and I thought it best to ask the students and what their opinions were. So I asked them just a quick summary of what they enjoyed about one curriculum versus the other. So I'm just going to read a couple of highlights. Hopefully I captured their thoughts from this. I like Ready Gen because it is more of a challenge than Wonders. Wonders has short stories, but Ready Gen has long stories that last a couple of days or longer, and I like long stories. I would recommend Ready Gen over Wonders to teachers and students because Ready Gen is more fun. If using Wonders, then you will be reading mini stories and snippets. But when using Ready Gen, you get to read a full story like Journey to the Center of the Earth. Journey to the Center of the Earth is way more interesting. And the last one. The novels are more interesting than the stories in Wonders. Ready Gen is also more fun because I like reading the novels so far. I'd rather have Ready Gen than Wonders. We also get to read books and actually read the text from the books. That's why I like Ready Gen better than Wonders.
Jill teaches 6th grade.
I was just going to say, that's better writing than I hear from some adults I run into. That's great.
We know that's what keeps straight. So, before we are glad to field your questions, I just wanted to end with, that struggle to get kids reading proficiently by 3rd grade. We have work to do. We have work to do at the elementary level. We're excited and empowered to do it. But when kids can't read proficiently by 3rd grade, they really do face daunting hurdles. It changes the trajectory for them. So it's our hope that using new materials as the baseline and then working on our common assessments and our instructional strategies moving forward, we can absolutely retool and do exciting things for student learning. Thanks for hearing about our process and highlights from our staff, and we would be glad to field questions that you have for us or for the team.
So what I'm going to do is give each trustee just a chance to ask, one question, and give everybody a chance to ask, and then move on if we need more time. Carrie.
The only question I have, this obviously replaces another curriculum that you've had. How different is it? I mean, is it a completely new program that we have here?
Yes, it is. So this program was written from the new standards up. So that was important to us. They didn't take an already existing program and say, let's just shuffle it around to match these new Idaho content standards. So it is truly a new program written from the ground up. It is very different in that it's based around that module or unit idea where we have that perfect balance of fiction, nonfiction. We have longer texts in students' hands,
right,
and repeated reads of those texts. So we see the rigor going up and the instructional strategies. So the important piece from my world will be not only purchasing it pending your approval, but absolutely the ongoing professional development and keeping some of this team as our experts to let teachers observe peers and do ongoing grade level team meetings where we work on getting it going.
Well, good, and I certainly want to thank everybody for being here and sharing their thoughts with us.
Pearlie, do you have any? Keep it down, Pearlie. He's a teacher here.
Yeah, where was this, 18 years ago?
Yeah.
The snippet part, that, I remember that complaint constantly from my 5th and 6th graders. It's one little piece of a story, and what happens next, or what happened before, and yeah, I understand that one. Heard it a lot. No questions.
Lonnie, do you have any questions?
My question or comment was going to be based kind of on what Carrie was asking, and you kind of answered it. The professional development part of it, like, this is a whole new thing. We're going to be rolling it out to everybody. Is there professional development and help to help train our teachers so that, you know, the adoption of this is successful?
Yes.
And that's, and like I said, you pretty much already answered it. So it sounds like you've obviously covered that base, but that's what I would definitely hope is the case, that everybody's ready to do something instead of just going, hey, here you go, here's a new curriculum, go figure it out.
And some of our staff are definitely excited / clamoring and said we want it before summer.
Right.
So our goal would be to offer a June overview for those staff who are interested in at least having their manuals and kind of diving in, and then repeating that in August for those for whom that date doesn't work. But a full day overview to launch it, and then ongoing training throughout the year, as well as just using a piece of my teaching and learning budget to keep some teacher leaders subbed out, talking to us about what do we need next. Right? We had other teachers come watch you teach a lesson, so ongoing professional development and mentoring would be critical to be able to changes that we want to see.
And we implemented Step Up to Writing 3 years ago,
Right.
and part of that implementation was having, we call them WICs, which were writing instructional coaches, and there's several of them sitting right here. So they had experience with the model of being that building support person as well as a grade level support person. And we really communicate that. So, for example, Jen Cornelius is a WIC, and she started quick on the spot, and so is Kim, and so is Nancy. But the people in her building know that they can come to her for help, as well as her grade level team.
Mindy has something to add to that.
So I have something exciting. So I was so excited about the program, and I finished Unit 1 and Unit 2. So I talked to both of my partners, because I teach with 2 other women, there's 3 of us. I was like, hey, do you want to try Unit 1? Hey, do you want to try Unit 2? So they're actually diving into it before, which I think is pretty phenomenal. So they'll actually have a little bit of experience. They'll teach it 4th quarter, which is pretty cool.
My partner's doing the same thing. She's teaching unit, I think, 2. And this program has free, it's like an online service that you can post questions, and they get back to you right away on any part of the program at all, which is really nice. That's included. So if you had a quick question, I don't know where to find this, you just type it in and they can get right back to you, which is nice.
Cool.
So I'll pass the baton. Gary, do you have any questions?
Of course, sure.
I just wanted to say it, like there was a chance. Go ahead.
Did you consider any other curriculums?
Yes. So really, we attempted to look at 4. An open source curriculum was piloted prior to my tenure here, so that's Engage New York, and that was piloted when I wasn't in my position, but determined that it wasn't a good fit for the district. And in our process, I started over the summer, as I mentioned, by researching at Ed reports while they were gone. I was doing my homework and identified the top 3 that I wanted to put in the hands of our staff. Unfortunately, one of those would not participate in a free pilot. They don't give materials free for trial, and they sent me back a quote of almost $1 million. So,
they eliminated
in order to be
themselves.
fiscally responsible, we took that one off the table and then looked at the next 2 highest rated from our reports.
So the next question, how long has this curriculum been available?
It has, the first version was a 2016 copyright, I believe, so we have
So
some
only a
districts-
couple of years?
Yes.
So is that too early, to look at data from its success in other districts with this curriculum?
We reached out to several districts, actually, who gave us email and feedback that after multiple years, they had seen their data go up. I personally think that timing is just right. You don't want to buy something right
Yeah.
when the standards change, because publishers will do what they're known to do. They'll take a current program, something like Scott Forsman, and just try to remix it. Move this book here, move these lessons here. And actually, staff said, can we just look at the updated Scott Forsman? It actually scored all red on Ed Reports. So we also considered looking at that, but took it off the table based on outside research, because they definitely had remixed it as opposed to building it from the ground up.
So thank you. I will
Okay.
just give you a couple comments. We'll go back, Gary. I'm going to steal the microphone for a moment. First off, it was a great format. It was great to hear from a variety of grades and teachers. Really kept it very interesting for us. Thank you. And I think Lonnie kind of touched on this district-wide buy-in. You know, you have a lot of teachers. I'm getting the sense that there's buy-in on this already, on the thought of a new. I just know that that's, you mentioned June. I was wondering how soon it can get in their hands so that they have some prep time and not get flooded
Yeah, that was
in
my
August.
question. When's this
June.
available from the publisher?
Pending your approval, I would work on getting it ordered by next week. We would.
So if we order it, in the middle of April, how long will it be until you start receiving materials?
Typically 4 to 6 weeks. You would purchase it through Caxton. That saves us shipping. They do all the instructional materials for Idaho. So 4 to 6 weeks, but we have it.
Great.
for sure for
And is it
staff
your
meetings.
intention to go all 6 grades simultaneously? Yes.
It is.
Okay, so on.
But as the team mentioned, we have a great deal of pilot materials that we receive for free. So many of them, when they tie unit, are then passing that unit to their colleagues, so that right now we're trying to build some expertise in these next couple months, just to get ahead of that exact question.
And I have just one last thing. So on the purchasing timeframe, do you just pay upfront for everything, or do you stage it as materials are shipped, or is it just all?
We can do either, but it's Lisa's preference that we pay in this
That's what
fiscal
I was gonna
cycle.
ask.
And so we get it ordered, get it
That's what I
paid
was gonna
for,
ask, yeah.
Prior to the new budget,
Okay.
July 1. So that'd be, hence why we're here tonight to
Yes.
move forward. pending
That
your
was
approval.
one of my questions, and that money is allocated for this school year, so.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to give each of you a chance, if you have more questions that you've thought of in the time, we've been kind of going down the line.
I do have one question, and that's about the academic vocabulary. Does it continue? I mean, Scott Forsman had its problems, but it was strong in academic vocabulary, and that's going to help, right?
See some hands, y'all want to talk
Yeah.
about your experience?
That's one of the things that I've been looking at because I'm doing the Idaho 4 this year, and we've been talking about vocabulary. And the vocabulary that's built into Scott Forsman is fabulous. There's like ready, Jen? It's at least 3 words a day. You go in depth on what does it mean, you understand it, can you use it? And then it also has things that they call by the way words, where it's like, we don't want to spend a ton of time learning what trident means, but I'm going to make sure that I teach it to you so that you can use it in context. The vocab is probably one of the best vocab I've seen in a reading program in a long time.
Good.
In Pearly, they teach all the roots too, so I teach Latin roots.
Good.
So
Good.
not only can they, learn these vocabulary words, but then they can break them down, knowing that aqua means water and things like that.
Super.
And can I add to
Yes,
that?
please.
Even at the first grade level, they'll start with the base word and then show different conjugations of it or, possibilities for it.
And that is so
even-
important for the spiraling, so when those
Absolutely.
first graders, when they get to 6th grade, they have that strong vocabulary.
Absolutely.
Great.
And even at the first grade level, they will not only have to write about what that might be, but just discuss it. And the speaking and listening part is phenomenal as well. So, lots of
Thank you.
collaboration.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Carolyn, Leanna, Barbie, and Jenny, who were here to support us too.
Yes, thank you. No,
Thanks
you
for
didn't.
sharing our first grade example.
Right. Do we feel ready to entertain a motion, or are you still wondering?
I'm ready to give you the motion.
Why don't you?
Madam Chairman, I make a motion to approve the recommendation of the adoption of Ready Gen for K through 6 English Language Arts.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Last chance for comments and questions. Do you guys have anything, any last lingering questions for these guys?
Not for me.
Gary? Nope.
It's time no,
Carol. Sean, any last comments? I'm assuming you're in
Well,
full favor of this.
I've watched a lot of curriculum adoption processes over the years in 3 different districts. And Andrea did such a great job of facilitating the group and working with Tasha, and teachers were so professional throughout. And it's never an easy decision, and I think it was handled with grace and professionalism, so thanks all of you for that.
So are there any districts in Idaho that are using this curriculum?
Not yet, not yet. They either haven't purchased, don't have the budget, or many use program called Journeys.
So is this an above average cost curriculum?
No, it actually was the cheaper of the 2 options that we ended up having as finalists.
So, I mean, just comment, I mean, what I learned recently when we went to Boise and we listened to the legislators and we met with legislators and we went to committees with legislators is, you know, the legislators recognize that education is underfunded in Idaho, and I think almost universally, and I see a lot of willingness in them to, you know, close the gap, but they want accountability, and they want accountability on the matrices that they provide, you know, what currently is the IRI, the ISAT, and the go-on rate. You know.
And we absolutely believe that this has a foundation to support not only that data, but just those 2 shifts, the dispositions we want for kids, and we hope our work will support secondary as well. So we're with you.
That's right.
Andrea, I just have one final question. Ongoing costs on this year to year, are that significant?
Thanks to the recommendation of the team, we will not have ongoing costs. Most of what we selected and the pieces that they found most valuable come as a Blackline master or a PDF, so with that initial cost.
So is the licensing, for example,
The licensing
is that every year or is
is
that?
for 6 years, so we would have.
You have one cost and it covers you for 6 years.
Yes, and then we need to reevaluate. Can we do without some of those pieces? Typically, they'll give you a price break if you re-up that in 6 years. But we'd have no year-over-year costs in terms of replacing materials outside of, you know, a big bump in enrollment or some damage to text. But we won't have a huge consumable budget for workbooks that we need to replace year over year. So moving away from that model.
Good. So if there's no more comments and questions, I will call for a vote on this motion. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. None opposed, so motion passes, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks.
good work. And as always, you're welcome to stay, but we understand. Gonna miss some good stuff. So even though there's some bustling going on, the next piece of our meeting is a budget discussion, and I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Woodward.
All right. No, I do not. So let me just kind of set the stage for you. In years past, and by the way, we have Lisa Howells on speakerphone.
Yes, I should have mentioned that. Hi, Lisa. Sorry we didn't pull you in earlier.
No problem.
So just want to start by saying that it feels like sometimes it feels like Groundhog's Day, because it feels like every time you turn around, you're kind of doing something that you did previously. And I believe that in this case, with our budgeting process, Lisa is so masterful of the work that she does to ensure that we make good decisions and we have accurate projections about what's coming down the pike from the federal and state government, that we have it. It's a well-oiled machine, in my opinion, thanks to Lisa's leadership. So I definitely wanted to say that. The process has not changed much in the last 6 years. We Some years are much harder than other years, dependent upon funding. We're finally doing some good rebounding in the state of Idaho, which we're as Lisa reminds me, we're the last to go into the recession and the last to come out, our state. And finally, we're making some really good strides with our funding from the state level. Every year, Lisa works early and often on trying to determine what is our funding going to look like in the coming years. And we usually have very, very accurate projections, and we base our budget building on that. Lisa facilitates a small budget committee every year. The small budget committee, she basically, the presentation that she did on March 13th for you all, she does that and more with her small budget committee to prep them for recommendations that they would give us in regards to balancing our budget for the upcoming fiscal year. So while the small budget committee is working on recommendations that they'll make for me, I'm working on my own ideas independent of the budget committee. And then most of the time we have very similar ideas, and we each have outliers as well. And so I meet with the small budget committee that they work. Lisa, is it like probably 4 meetings? Is that correct?
Yeah, in a short year, sometimes it could be, 6 or 7, depending on how much money we're cutting.
Yeah,
Right.
and this year it has been on the shorter end because we weren't looking at a massive amount. So I think I met with the budget committee mid-March or so, and then I worked for a couple of weeks on, fine-tuning it and working with our administrative team, giving them some heads up, asking for their ideas, et cetera, prior to this evening. The other piece is to balance our budget. It's a fluid, it's a target that does move up and down. So when Lisa presented to you all on, I believe, March 13th, we were looking at $540,000. You will see tonight that our target has moved to $531,404. There are some things that Lisa and I are waiting on that could reduce that number significantly. When Lisa comes back, we'll work on those things and we'll bring that to your attention. But we're still operating off the 530,000 or so target. On any year, we're going to be looking at trying to find $330,000. If you recall Lisa's presentation to you all, our budget buffer, or enrollment buffer as we would like to call it, and our contingency dollars, we put $200,000 aside each year as an enrollment or budget buffer. And as a reminder, that's just, enrollment projections can be very, very tricky. So we want to have money in the bank if we're not right on our enrollment projections, because enrollment drives revenue to our school district. I'll use the example of Coldwater Creek. We were all done budgeting, and boom, we found out that Coldwater Creek, and we were past the point where we could cut our staff. So luckily, we had anticipated a need for, just in case enrollment did something wonky to us, at least we had the $200,000 sitting there to pay for that staff. And of course, when Coldwater left, we had a drop in enrollment that year. So that's why we do that. So our overall total is not much more than our budget buffer and our contingency. The other thing is that I'd like to call out is every year we also look at, are there other, I'll back up a little bit. We run an enrollment-based staffing model. So if we see that we have schools that are losing students and we do not have the students to justify the staffing, even on a low reduction year, if you will, we will reduce that staffing and go after another need that we have in the school district. And that's, in my opinion, just really responsible fiscal management. So I'm going to pass you all out this sheet of paper, and that I'll go ahead and take all of them. I'll just take one. Sorry. It's fumbling. It's for you. And if anyone would like, and Gary, when you're, can you take the rest of the stack and hand it to Mary, please?
Yeah.
And then there's extras for the audience here. And I'm going to go through, it says,
Take one, then pass.
You're supposed to take one first.
yeah, basically, in years past, we call, okay, these are our budget reduction recommendations. And really, we are tasked with creating a balanced budget every year. So this is our ideas for creating a balanced budget. So what you see on here is more reductions than we were tasked with making. And the reason for that is, and I'll talk about this at the end, I'd like to reallocate some of our funding to other need areas, and I'll get into that in a moment. So I'm going to go ahead and start with, and also they're not reductions. That's why the name has been changed in all cases. But I'll go ahead and start with the first one is we typically have built into our budget dollars to give our new administrators extra days in the summer to get ready, to get going. We do not, in this year, we do not believe that's necessary because we have Tasha Hammer, who's already on staff. We're already transitioning her in. And we have Carrie Grenier at Sand Point Middle School, who will be taking Dave Demers' position. She's already there transitioning in, so that was an easy one for us. The next one is district office staff reduction and work calendar. Our directors at the district level have done a really good job of talking with their employees on, all right, is there time that you'd be willing to give up? Because we always ask that first. Hey, if you're willing to work a reduced calendar, can you still get everything done that needs to be done? And in doing that work, we've been able to save about $24,000 next year by reducing the number of days of some of our employees at the district office. And each year,
centered on holidays.
Exactly.
Where students are in school.
In part of the cases, it will be for some of our employees that have our full year employees, they will be taking off holidays. The entire holiday break. That's a great example. That's less busy for them. That's not as critical. Thankfully, in these cases, for many of our staff members, it's like, great, I'd like to have that time off, and I can get it done. I've been able to do that. So, but we'll watch it carefully because we do not want people then having to stay in an amount of time to get the work done that they're not able to. So we'll watch it for a year and see how that goes. I mentioned that we run an enrollment-based staffing model. This is also recommending that we reduce one FTE teacher at Sagal Elementary School. What that would do is, instead of having at the first and second grade levels 15 or 16 students per classroom, we would have 20 or 21, which are still low for our district standards, and they'll be right in the wheelhouse of other schools. Moving on to, this is a very easy one, contingency created positions. We, at the beginning of every year, we have contingency dollars, as you know, about $130,000 that we deploy. We are recouping $59,000 of that because there's positions that we do not believe we need. And we tell people, hey, we're hiring you on a contingency basis for this year. Now, and let me just give you a couple of examples that I might share with you. For example, there was some support at Northside at a particular grade level that we're not anticipating. We may need it next year, we may not. So we've told that employee, all right, come check with us in September. We may hire you back. So that just rebuilds our contingency funds. We've also got, and some of the positions we're maintaining, we're keeping. I'll use an example. Hope Elementary School, for the last 2 years, I have authorized them to hire additional staffing to help with their multi-age classrooms. And now in year 3, I talked with Sherry Hatley, and the need's not going to go away. It is very difficult, as Pearlie has mentioned before, that it's a little challenging and it does require additional support, and that's just part of how we'll do business moving forward. So that's that. Tom Albertson, Sand Point High School principal, offered up part of his extra duty budget this year. He's got a 3 or 4 year look as principal there at how much money do I really need in the extra duty budget. Extra duties are when you see ticket takers, for example, at football games or basketball games. we have a budget that we're able to pay staff on an extra duty timesheet. Year in and year out, we have extra in that we're not using, so we're taking that out. The budget buffer was rebuilt, so Andrew mentioned the fact that we had some money. We guessed right on our enrollment, so we had dollars that we could reinvest back into a high need area. When we talked to you was it last fall? No, it was the fall before. No, it was last fall, sorry. Last fall about our curriculum adoption, we're like, okay, if we have additional monies coming in, we want to spend it on curriculum because we want to do a full K-6. That helped us out. It's a one-time cost, so that money goes back into that area. We have
question.
Yes, go ahead.
Are you saying these are funds for the current school year that aren't being utilized that we're going to carry forward?
No, for next year, we spent some of our dollars that we had for this year as a budget buffer. We had some one-time costs. We're paying for the curriculum that you all agreed upon tonight. And we will not have that expense next year, so that will go back into our budget buffer that's a good question. The next one is our Title I, due to some federal reductions. We will be making some non-staff related reductions and that would be professional development materials, and we're looking at those budgets now. We do not anticipate reducing our staffing, but that's where that would come from. And then the last one's just kind of an interesting one every year, that staff turnover. When staff members retire, they're on the high end of our pay scale, and we end up saving money because they're replaced by people on a lower end. So this year, it'll be around $151,000 to the good there. So this is so different than in years past. So it's usually this time of year it's like, oh my gosh, it's going to be so hard. It's not $1.2 million, and you remember some of those meetings, and I know you do, Geraldine. So this is looking pretty good. Now, every year I also make recommended expenditure recommendations, and in years past, it's been one of my first years here. I had the great pleasure to work with Andrew Murray as an instructional coach in a previous district, and districts that I've worked in had that model, and so I believed in it. So one year I came to you all and said, I recommend that we take some of the money we were spending here and move it here. One year it was counselors, and so on and so forth. So every year we do this. And this year I'm recommending that we go back to a .5 dean position at Farm and Stidwell Elementary School. In my second year in the district, Kathy Burgett was a half-time dean, half-time title teacher, and Annie Begbie was the principal at the time. And our numbers at that school dropped down to about 410 students. And it was during a tough budget year, and I made the recommendation to cut that position. It could be argued that it still would have really helped that school out, but our numbers had dropped. And at that time, I had made the statement that, okay, when we regain enrollment, I will go back to the board and recommend that we bring this position back. And so right now, Farman is back up to they should be at 490 students today, versus the 411 they had when we reduced that position. But that's not including preschool students. They have another roughly 25 to 30 on that particular campus of preschoolers as well. So our next highest school would be Kootenai, which is at 419, and then would look at Washington with 309 and Sagal with 275. They all have full-time principals, so you can see the workload's always enormous for a principal, but if you can imagine having 500 kids plus preschoolers and no support, it's one of those deals where one of our biggest missions is to recruit and then also retain great people. And I can tell you, the principal there right now, Principal Olson, is not a complainer. Trust me on that. He's not saying, "Oh my gosh, I need it," but I go in there and I look at the look on his face and what he's dealing with. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, we need to give this guy some support and some help." So that's the funding would be $25,000 that's already been figured into these budget movements that we've done. Plus, we would use $15,000 from Safe and Drug-Free Schools dollars as well, which is a very appropriate use of those funds for sure. So that's in a nutshell what we have going on. What questions might you all have?
So, and Lisa, you can remind us also, this will be part of the whole budget that we see in May.
Exactly. So Lisa will be doing a final, basically asking you to adopt the budget formally. Is that May, Lisa? Yeah?
We have to, as do all other taxing districts, notify the county of our budget hearing date, and it is that second Tuesday in June. Is that June 13th?
June.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. The law states that we have to adopt a budget 28 days before our annual meeting.
Right.
Right.
Okay. There's no motion needed on the information you shared with us tonight, but I appreciate hearing that. And in the interest of time, we're going to move right on to Kelly.
All right.
Since we have a big list here.
So we have a large packet of first reading in your board packets for policy.
Yep.
As usual, Trustee Decker has found
Maybe
multiple errors in my first reading, so he'll provide those to me later, and I'll have those all fixed for second reading.
Okay.
Should I go one by one, or do you have questions individually?
I would like to, I'll just at least look, without reading the content of each one, but I just want to ask the trustees here, did you have a chance to read, through these thoroughly, so we don't need a out loud reading of them? Did you have a chance to look at each one? Okay.
Not like Pearlie, but yeah, I read it.
Yeah, well, that's why I didn't want Pearlie to answer.
I could just go quickly with an
That's what I'd like to
explanation.
look at the title and description, and then we'll move on if there's no questions.
So the first policy for first reading is current policy number 1511. I'd like to propose changing that number to 1600, just as a reminder, to align with ISBA model policy numbers. And this title won't change. It's Code of Ethics for board members. You guys do sign this every year. And actually, I just matched it with ISBA. That's why all the strikes are there. You actually currently sign what's proposed here tonight.
Yeah.
And so I'm just matching it. There, of course, were a couple punctuation errors in that I will fix for second reading.
Okay.
Moving on to the next policy, it's current policy 1512 for us. Again, proposed policy number 1610, conflict of interest. I had just made some punctuation changes. I will fix a couple errors if Pearlie had pointed out for me to change. There were no drastic changes in this, again, just referencing Idaho code.
And I will mention that in my reading, I did not flip back and forth to see if the proper Idaho code was being listed, so I
have double checked those and made sure, and again, Pearlie's absolutely checked and read all of those.
Okay, so.
And then the next policy is a new policy, 1615, and it's titled Trustee Spouse Employment. There were, and I just copied from model policy, but there were a couple punctuations, actual wrong words that Pearlie has pointed out. I will make those changes for sure in second reading. Since this is a new policy, were there any questions regarding this one? It does reference Idaho code.
I thought we already all knew about this. It was.
We
just didn't have
talked
a
about it
policy
before,
written.
but no,
Yeah.
There wasn't an adopted policy.
Right, it was just an understood. Okay.
Then,
I didn't have any questions on it.
Okay. Then moving on is a revision to current policy 1621, A policy number change for recommendation would be moving to 1620, trustee in service. It was just a recommendation from ISBA to add some new language in that policy. There is no Idaho code referenced. Again, this is a recommendation from ISBA to have in our board policy. If no questions, just moving on to the next policy. This would be a new one. It is policy 1630, and it's board development opportunities. We do practice a lot of this already. Also, this recommendation from ISBA is supported by Idaho Code as well.
And the only comment I had on that one is...
There's some punctuation that I will change in that from model policy.
I was just looking at where is the reference to... So anytime we do any of these trainings, if there's more than 3 of us, it's posted. But as I understand it, you post it anyway. I'm trying to see where that posting of a new...
If there's a board quorum ever of, you guys have a quorum, I will be posting it. So if there's a board training, even that's not hosted by the school district, for ISBA, for example, the summer leadership, I post those for our public to know that you guys will be at a training, even though there will be no business conducted.
Right. Oh, here it is. The public shall be kept informed through the news media.
Yeah.
And that's just our standard.
Correct. And with every posting by Idaho Code, I have to notify the news media. So our local news media gets it. I send it to the Daily Bee and notify them on top of my regular postings throughout town as well. Moving on is the next policy, 1640. This is a new recommended policy from ISBA titled New Board Member Workshop. Again, this does reference Idaho Code, but it's something that we do practice. Of course, becoming a new board member, you should jump up to speed as fast and quickly as possible, and educating yourself and
right.
This is motherhood.
The next policy I do is current policy. It's a new policy, and I'll tell you why it's new. It's policy 1700, charter schools. I'm requesting that it's a new policy because I'm asking you to consider deleting current policy 1630, charter schools. If you didn't notice, the last time that this was even reviewed was in 1999. So much law, Idaho law and code has changed regarding charter schools that when I contacted ISBA about a model policy, they didn't have one. They didn't even have a model policy anymore. So they created one from scratch, and for your peace of mind, had Anderson, Julian, and Hull, our attorneys and their legal counsel for them, create and review a policy that you're seeing in front of you, 1700 for charter schools. We are our local charter schools authorizer, so I felt it's important to have a policy in front of you titled charter schools. I didn't cross-pollinate them, for a lack of better words, because so much of the code has changed. I started and it was
easier to start
just delete. We will delete the one if you guys like that the best, and re-adopt the new recommended policy. In this one, Pearlie did, even with so many eyes on it, catch a couple punctuation errors and word changes, so I will have those struck so you know which ones they are for second reading.
So I have a couple of questions, and I don't know, Superintendent Woodward, how this seems more in-depth than the process we go through with our charter school. There's a lot of oversight references and looking over enrollment policy and revisions and admissions and continuously monitoring is mentioned in here, and that there's a performance certificate, and that we set their performance targets, and then we present a performance report. And it made me aware that our relationship with our charter school is very easy.
Yeah.
To what extent are we?
So they actually set their performance indicators and measures and metrics. And then they come to, and they've already
And
presented
they present
to us.
it, right?
And then they give us a yearly report as well. So I believe that
we're fulfilling all of these.
Yeah, and we have a very, very positive relationship with
Right.
them. And we don't, part of the deal with, we decided, hey, if it's not broke, let's not try to fix it. They would have, I think, did you find out that we're the only authorizer of it as?
According to ISBA, Lake Pend School District is the only public school that is still an authorizer for a charter school that they're aware of. I don't think they researched it a lot. They had no intention of adding their recommended 1700 policy to their model policy because there we're the only ones that they're aware of that are still an authorizer.
And I'll review it with more of a fine-tooth comb as well.
I just want to make sure that our comfortable relationship isn't missing any
No, I didn't
vital
believe
things
so on
required of us.
my first.
Okay.
But I have a meeting coming up with them soon, and we'll check it out together.
I mean, it references in here that anytime they make any changes to their bylaws or whatever, that we be informed. And I think we're just hearing from them annually.
Yeah.
So,
but that's true. They are required to do that, and that's good for us because they, for example, their enrollment, they only see X grade levels right now. If they were to change that, they'd be required to come in front of us to keep us informed.
Okay.
And that's a good thing because it could drastically impact our enrollment. So I believe that's a benefit in our best interest. And when we were talking about, hey, should we require them to go after another authorizer, like a university to be the authorizer, et cetera? If they did that, we would have no relationship at all with them, and then they could just do whatever they want. Right now, it's collaborative and say, all right, let's talk about this. And
yeah, it's a very healthy relationship. So
yeah,
that's good.
but your question and your point is very good. We need, I'll double check.
I just want to make sure we're in alignment with what
You bet.
this new policy is, because this is more detail laid out than I would.
Is there any control of their enrollment? I mean, we have no input into that, right?
We do in that their bylaws have grade levels and only certain grade levels that they can see currently. And
They're limited in grade levels that they
Yeah.
offer, but
Right.
they're not limited in how many students per grade level they can accommodate.
they have caps that they utilize. So they have, like, in some cases, a waiting list, other cases are open. We don't dictate that, but if they wanted to make a change, they'd have to come in front of you all and say, hey, we would like to do this. And it's a way for us to kind of keep a real good pulse on those things.
Right.
But yeah, they want us to remain as their authorizer
Yeah.
too. And it's been a good, healthy relationship.
Well, thank you for the
You bet.
additional insight on that policy, so I'm comfortable if you go ahead with the.
Yep, so the last policy in here is just our current policy that I'm requesting that you consider to delete, for deletion 1630. So if there's no other questions, that concludes my first reading.
I'm comfortable with the policies that we saw here on the first reading.
Moving on in the agenda to the second reading of policy that I presented to you last time. There were no changes that were recommended in any of these, and unless you had any new questions that arose, I could answer any of those. I would like to mention that, again, in policy 1500, that section under annual meetings, that is all struck. Geraldine
yeah, I was
did
trying to remember. Oh, where
ask
is
me
that?
where that went. Just as a reminder, on February 13th, you adopted into policy, as a new policy, 1200, and it's titled Annual Organization Meeting, and that dealt with all the
That's where that content is.
assignment of positions
Right.
from the superintendent and CFO and clerk.
So. We did not need a motion for first readings, but for second readings we do, and there's several motions. There's 3 kind of laid out. If there's no other questions on the second reading, we can move ahead with motions.
Okay, Madam Chairman, I make a motion to delay policy 1420, school board meeting procedures. Is that the first proposed one?
Second.
Second that.
Moved and seconded. Any comments? Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. The motion passes. We have a second motion here.
I make a motion to approve the revisions to policies 1400, 1405, 1410, 1420, 1430, and 1500.
I second that motion.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. Motion passes. And there's one final.
I make a motion to approve the adoption of new policies 1510 and 1525.
And I second that motion.
Moved and seconded. Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. Motion passes. That concludes the formal business of our meeting today, and we have 2 administrators here. If they have any announcements, 2 principals, Phil, Jeff? Yes?
It's not hitting yet. The first meeting is on Friday, but all small schools in Region 1 last year participated in a car raffle, and we actually had Post Falls Volkswagen donated a sweet convertible Volkswagen Bug this year. And so that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out as a fundraiser.
Yeah, that's good.
How is that going to be? How are you going to do the raffle?
Very similar to the way Sandpoint does. We've already gone through one about last year. We did it's just raffle tickets. All the schools are given X number of raffle tickets, and they sell them media can.
Yeah.
And
See
last year we
where
made
it goes.
somewhere, wasn't huge money, but it was like $1,600, $1,700, and so every little bit helps.
Yep.
So,
Great.
nice.
And Jeff, your school was in the paper today?
I can't read it online anymore. I'm too stingy to buy a subscription. I gotta find
Oh,
it.
it's great. I have a copy.
No, I got a
I'll
trick.
bring
I got a trick way to do it. Don't listen, Mary. How you can avoid that?
Okay.
Oh,
It has to do with
don't
your
do it.
cookies and stuff.
I have the actual paper version, but it's Brenda.
I get the paper
wanna
though.
take
I'm a
your
subscriber.
announcement.
I
It's Brenda Woodward's forestry group.
Right.
Preparing for the forestry competition.
Yes,
There's
yes,
a great
Our
photo.
forestry group, we have our first time group preparing.
Nice.
Brenda Woodward is one of our fabulous teachers, and she is now started every other year, 1 year doing water science, followed the next year by forestry, and the water science group goes down and competes in the water forum, the clean water forum down at U of I or in Coeur d'Alene, whoever decides to host it. But this is our first year that we will be going to the forestry competition.
Great.
She is just got those kids running and measuring trees, and her husband came and delivered a load of logs out in the back of our school, and the kids are out there scaling and doing all kinds of stuff. I don't even know what they're doing, but it's amazing stuff. If you want, 4th period every day, stop by, and they're doing great stuff. So that's great. One of our students had a letter in the paper too. I thought that's what you were talking about.
Oh,
so,
no, I didn't.
So yeah.
That's good.
So you're going to the forestry competition?
Yeah,
we are. Well, we're gonna try to win it.
It's a great event.
Yes.
I've been many times.
It
It's
is a good
tremendous opportunity.
Yeah, we're very excited, and we have several students who are already saying this might be a career for me. So they're
that's
and
cool.
it's a growing industry. So.
Yeah.
I also wanted to mention that we had our first beginning of 4th quarter meeting about seniors just today. And for many of you new board members who haven't been to a Lake Ponderay graduation, this might be the year you want to get in on it, because we've never been to one. They're quite lengthy. We really celebrate our students.
Yes,
and we've had 2 consecutive years of the biggest classes ever. So it's predictable. We have a slightly smaller class this year. We're looking at about 20 to 22 graduates this year. but we have 35 juniors already behind
Lined
them.
up, yeah,
So
so-
if you're gonna choose a year.
If you're gonna get your feet
Yeah, so
wet.
this year will only be like 6
Yeah.
hours, so
Yeah.
next year.
And bring your Kleenex, it makes me tear up. Every graduation I go to, Phil will know that
Yeah.
too. I have to bring Kleenex because it's so cool.
So when you guys are divvying them up, ours is looking good.
Thank you.
And you'll be sending us
If
an
there's-
email with the time and the date?
You guys usually.
Usually we do get
talk
those
about it and
announcements,
decide
yeah.
who goes to which ones,
Yeah.
But I'd be
So,
glad to.
thank you both for announcements, and I don't think there's other administrators here. Sean, last.
Oh, I was just going to
call.
formally introduce Tasha, and she was here,
You
but I
did?
do want you to know that sometimes people will say, oh, that was just an inside candidate, look at that. We did a full-on search, had very good applicants from across the U.S., and we only want the best, and Tasha was the very best up against everybody that applied, so I'm proud that she's going to be running that school next year, so.
I've heard really good
That's great.
things from fellow teachers that have dealt with her that
Good.
were super excited.
Awesome, that's good to hear.
I'm one of those.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you.
Well, with that, I will adjourn the meeting.